You know, some people never stop playing the same deck over and over again, either because of nostalgia or because it's the only deck they know how to play. Basically, there are a bunch of decks that come to my mind whenever I think about that. So you guessed it, today we will be analyzing these decks in order to figure out whether or not they're still competitively viable in today's metagame. But before this video starts, I do have one thing to say. Usually this is where I ask you guys to like and subscribe to the video, but today I'm going to ask you guys to check out my sponsor, CardBrawlers. Singles for Photon and Hypernova are now ready for pre-order, so if you want to be the first one to win with the new Kashtira cards, you know where to go. Also, you get free shipping for orders over $50 and free tracking for orders over $150. Alright, with that being said, let's get right into this video. The first deck I want to touch on is Sword Soul. Now, is it still viable in today's metagame? First of all, when I see Sword Soul, I think of a better Salamangreat that can play a lot of hand traps in order to adapt itself to any given format. Because of its malleability, it always has a lot of potential in any format and can catch a lot of people off guard if they're not really well prepared against it. For the most part, Sword Soul doesn't really rely on a lot of light and dark monsters in your graveyard outside of Ashuna and Vishuddha, so the bestial monsters really don't do that much against you. Oh, and Dimension Shifter quite literally almost does nothing against Sword Soul. As a matter of fact, they actually side Shifter against a few decks. This makes Sword Soul a very good counter to hand traps, which actually does strengthen the arguments for the deck. Now, unfortunately, Sword Soul does have some limits. Without Protos, it lacks what I call an unfairness aspect to it. The deck only puts up a few amount of interruptions on the field, such as, I don't know, a Chija with a Baron and a Blackout maybe, and it supplements it with hand traps, but it's not necessarily perfect. Like, you can still lose to a Dark Ruler no more now because there's nothing that actually lingers, whereas before when there was Protos, even if you have Dark Ruler, it doesn't matter because the Protos still resolved its effect last turn. And the deck also can't turbo out cards like Dweller because all you can really do in Sword Soul is Synchro Summon and that's it. So in a way, it's kind of like a one-trick pony because all you really do is just the exact same thing over and over again. But apart from that, Sword Soul is a big pile of rubble that can be sculpted into any weapon that you desire. And it is your responsibility to develop it into the best weapon that is the most suited for any given format, and that is done via proper deck building. Next up is Despia, and I can tell you right now that I really like this deck. It used to suffer from kind of like the same things as Sword Soul did because they kind of coexisted in the same format, but Despia actually got way better thanks to Branded Expulsion. Thanks to Branded Expulsion, Sword Soul can now give Raw's Disciple to their opponents very consistently, and that card is basically like an Ibli, but a little better. You can't Tribute Summon on top of it unless you're summoning like a Winged Dragon of Raw or something, and you also cannot link it off, and you can't Special Summon monsters while Raw's Disciple is on the field. And since you're always giving the Raw's Disciple on your opponent's turn, they also can't put it into attack to crash it. And honestly, even outside of Raw's Disciple, the deck definitely does have some nice options, and Branded Fusion is still just as good as ever. Because of how much inherent synergy the bestial monsters have in the Despia deck, and because of how good Saronir is, sending Retribution and everything to recycle back your branded spells and trap cards, the deck does have some nice options for going second against Tearlaments. Back in the days, the Despia deck couldn't really afford to play a lot of hand traps, so that was an issue, but like I said, things have changed and the deck got better. Overall, I think if the ban list keeps hurting the top decks and doesn't actually hit Despia at all, Despia is just going to keep getting better and better over time. Now, the third deck that I'm going to be covering is an interesting one because people could be playing it, but they choose not to, and I think they're just getting bored of it, or that they realize that there is another better deck that is very similar, but like I said, objectively better. I am talking about Eldritch, the good old trap-heavy deck. Why play that deck when you can just play Labyrinth? It's also getting some nice support in Photon and Hypernova, so I really don't see why you would ever want to play Eldritch over Labyrinth. Everything that Eldritch can do, Labyrinth can do just better, honestly, and it has a better recursion with an infinite grind game, literally, whereas Eldritch can run out of gas. Eldritch also only relies on the exact same monster in your main deck, so if you get all of your copies like DD Crowd or something, or hit by a Bestial, you are very screwed. So I'll be honest with you guys, I wouldn't bother playing Eldritch, I would be playing Labyrinth instead if I really wanted to play a trap deck. Okay, so this next deck is very interesting because people love it a lot, and that would be Dragon Link. It's a good deck, but it keeps receiving collateral damage from other decks and other engines, abusing cards that it was also using, such as Chaos Ruler that was being abused by the Punk engine. It's really unfair that Dragon Link has to pay for other people's degeneracy, but I guess it is what it is. Dragon Link can actually play bestial monsters better than everyone else because they can use two bestials not to summon Beatrice or Wallow, but rather to summon Hieratic Dragon King of Atom. It's basically the original LP. It summons a dragon monster from the deck, it doesn't negate the effect. Absolutely disgusting. It can play Rivalry of the Warlords because everything literally is dragon, and you can also play a lot of hand traps in Dragon Link while also having some nice draw power. Dragon Link is a mid-range deck, so the goal is not really to put up like an unbreakable board turn 1 and that's it, but rather to like kind of mix the pressure that you have on the field as well as your hand traps in your hand so that you win by turn 3. Not an impossible mission, it definitely can be done, but I think unless you have like really good matchups, Dragon Link can actually have it a little difficult against a few decks. The fifth and final deck that I'm going to be covering today is Drytron. Ben 10 is now a 3, which is a little bit of a buff, but at the same time, Ava was already banned for a while, and Herald of Orange Light is at 1. Now, of course, the deck has some really insane 2-card combos, but there are a few issues with Drytron. The first one, obviously, the Drytron monsters are light, which means that Bestials are nasty against it. And also, your graveyard really matters in Drytron, so Dimension Shifter and Kashtira Riseheart are disgusting against you. And Drytron is a combo deck. It can't really play a lot of hand traps unlike Sword Soul and Dragon Link, so going second against Tear Laments and Kashtira is basically impossible. Now, of course, I do believe that if you go first in your game 1s or something, you're pretty much winning all your games because the deck is quite consistent and really powerful. And if you know exactly what you're doing and you're going for unorthodox combos, you also can win going second against already established boards. But like I said, the real problem is going second because going first the deck is already decent unless you're getting hit by Bestials or Shifter. Anyways, that's pretty much all I had to say for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know your thoughts about these decks in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.